All right, welcome into today's show. I'm your host, Kurt Mueller of the Barbecue Life podcast. We're powered by Hound Hogs BBQ Supply. You can check out those guys on Facebook, Instagram at Hound Hogs BBQ Supply, and on the web at houndhogsbbqsupply.com. So I want to welcome in the Pitmaster and owner of Elite Barbecue Smokers. He's based out of Conway, South Carolina, Mr. Jason Hardee. Jason, thanks for joining us, sir.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on.
And for our listeners, Jason is a big proponent of all things barbecue. He's even got his own show called Barbecue Roundtable that airs 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday nights. And you can check that out on all the social media platforms. He's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest at Elite Barbecue Smokers. So make sure that you're checking out his show because Jason's got a lot of good guests on there pretty much every single week. So he's got it going on. Like we always do, let's start with journey, though. I love talking about this barbecue journey, right? Because everybody's got a good story of how they got into this crazy world of competition barbecue. So what's your story, Jason?
So 2008 and 2009, I had an old dairy barn here at the house, and we were tearing part of it down, kind of getting stuff out. And I found this 1954 milk vat. This thing was 42 inches by 7 feet long, big old milk vat. So we had this milk vat, and we was taking it out, and it was solid stainless steel insulated because it was basically, we used to have milk before the pasteurization laws come into effect, and that's what family had, old dairy farm. And so we were out there, and me and some guys working for me didn't want to throw it away. We couldn't figure out what to do with it. So I had a bright idea of let's making this thing a grill. Well, being me, anybody knows me knows that I never do anything small. Everything's got to be just boom over the top. And so we decided to take this thing. We had two lids open up on there. And back then, that was before we got to competition barbecue. Yeah, we had put burnt burners in the bottom of it. So I had basically two hog cookers. I could cook two hogs at one time on it. And that thing would go low and slow. That was old propane. That was old Carolina propane style grill. It'd go low and slow at 225, or that bad boy would run 750. I cooked steaks on it. It was just crazy. And then we done that. And then we kind of got the bug into barbecue. And we found some old propane tanks, built some stick burners out of it. And about that time, barbecue Pitmaster show got on TV. We started kind of getting into that. And we started watching those shows and just started cooking around the house, playing around with it. And I seen a little SCBA contest, South Carolina Barbecue Association, had a contest that came into hometown, Conway, right there on the river, pretty contest. And so 2010, we decided that we was going to venture out there because we had really good barbecue. We had the best barbecue in the world. Nobody could ever beat our barbecue.
Right.
And so we signed up for the contest and going to come out here and do it, and had a good time doing it. And we got 13th. And I remember looking back at the thing, I was so mad because we didn't win the contest. And this was a long time ago. And I just turned a bunch of pulled pork, drop it in the box, turn in, figured to win contest. Knowing what I know now, I'm lucky to come in dead last. But back then we were cocky and didn't know no better. And so we kind of done that and kind of got the bug. And we started doing an SCBA contest, traveling all over the state, and just fell in love with just meeting the people. And progression from that, we done a contest at a church one time, and it was so cold out there. The stick burner we was using wood at the time. I had ran out of wood cooking the pork for the contest. It was just a pork contest. Ran out of wood completely. It was so cold that little propane stick burner I built was just eating through the wood like it wasn't nobody's business.
Right.
And I said, it's the last time I ever do a contest without insulated smoker. And so we went from there. And at that time, we were going underneath the name Hardee Boys Barbecue. Mm-hmm. That was our first team we had. There's a Facebook page on there. If anybody wants to find it, you'll see some interesting stuff. So we started from there and kind of decided to start building smokers. And we was going to build smokers and sell smokers because me just wanted to go out there and build it instead of just buying it. And so we started building some insulated smokers, and that's when we changed the name to Elite Barbecue Smokers. And we got into competition KCBS to sell smokers. And what we found out was that without being a production shop and having a big outfit, and having full-time jobs, it was just not feasible to maintain that. And so we just decided just to stick at the competition and just do competition barbecue. So that's the origin story.
And there we are. So basically kicked it off in 2010, literally with the homemade cooker probably, right? And then
Oh, yeah.
the journey is just taking to where you are now. Now you're competing with KCBS. Are you still doing SCBAs as well?
No. So a funny story with SCBA. That's where we kind of got into it, and I loved it, and I won a few contests with it. But they have got aroma overall impression part of their scoring system,
Mm-hmm.
and that just drove me absolutely crazy. And when we got in KCBS contest, we started doing KCBS for multiple reasons: to sell smokers a national footprint, and also the thing is at the time SCBA was just doing only pork.
Yeah.
And so we figured we do KCBS and SBN, and you have multiple chances to do other categories and do decent. If you drop one ball, you can basically pick up the ball for the rest of them. And so that's kind of what we was looking at. And I haven't done an SCBA in a number of years, but my trailer is not necessarily right now designed for SCBA contests. I showed it the last one, and they looked at me like, "You can't park that here." So
Interesting. So it's too big for the.
Yeah, so our trailer we carry right now is most time we cook out of is a 40-foot toy hauler.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big RV, and a lot of times the SCBA contest was made for my little small trailers because it's in downtown and stuff, and they don't have the space for the big RVs.
Right.
Whereas KCBS tends to be a little more set up for the big RVs.
So I'm curious, at what point you mentioned you got the bug early on, tried to sell some smokers, found out probably not going to work. So just stuck to the competing, you had a name change along the way as well, to where you are now. I guess what was when you came to the realization, hey, we're not going to be able to do the smoker thing anymore, and we're just going to stick to the competition side. What was the mindset like when you finally realized, okay, I'm going all in with the competition side?
Well, a couple of things was going on. One of the things when I was doing barbecue, we started, I think 2011, 2012, we started doing barbecue church at contests.
Mm-hmm.
So everywhere contest we went to, me or somebody else kind of host barbecue church. And it got to be where I was doing quite a few of them because a couple of guys that were doing it kind of backed out of barbecue for multiple reasons. And so we were being part of barbecue church all over every contest we went to. And we just started kind of doing that. And then when I decided to step away from building the smoker side of it, it actually freed up some more time on the side. And I was able to come out here and do some of my side work because I was doing some drafting and engineering work on the side. And that kind of helped funding my hobby.
Sure.
So as long as my house payment money wasn't funding barbecue, then my hobby money is funding barbecue. We've kind of done that. And at the time, I had kind of gotten away from hardcore hunting and fishing and stuff. And so I just wanted something to do, and this was something that me and my wife could do together, and we could travel and see different parts of the country. And with KCBS, it was kind of out branching into different areas, and so we were able to go out there and just meet some amazing people and just see different parts of the country. It's crazy. Had a blast doing it. Having a blast doing it.
I was going to say present tense there, right? Not past tense. Present tense there. I love listening to the journey and just where how all of this came to be. And it's interesting because you said one word that I hear pretty much every time on my show, and you probably hear it too on yours, and that is people.
Yeah.
People, right? It's a theme that continually comes up. And from your standpoint, you've been in the game, quite a long time, right? What about the people, right? What about the people that make this crazy world of competitive barbecue? What about the people is so special in your mind?
Well, to really get that, I want to back up a minute here. So growing up, I was, like I said, I used to do a lot of hunting and fishing and stuff, and I still do some of it, but I used to do hardcore hunting and fishing. But at that time, we used to do a lot of deer driving, with the dogs and stuff and everything else. And so what would happen is at lunchtime, everybody come gather at the cabin in the middle of the day, and we'd always eat together and just tell stories together. And after the hunts, we'd do the same thing. That's what we used to always do with that. And when we got a little more away from the dog driving and went more towards the still hunting and stuff here, that lost that. the whole group kind of lost that dynamic because everybody was going hunting, going home, going hunting, going home. And so I love the stories because I could hear these old timers tell stories that was just coolest stories in the world. And that's what I loved about the hunting and fishing side. It was just the stories.
Right.
And so when we kind of got out of that, I got married and started doing barbecue and got to hear these stories and hear some of these again, got to have a relationship with guys in a sense and having conversation with it. I remember the first, not first time. I remember one of the best stories was though I was doing a contest in Myrtle Beach and I was new. I mean, I was sitting there trying to figure out what in the world is this flavor profile. Didn't understand it. At the time. I was making my own rubs. I was making my own sauces. I was trying to do everything myself because I had no knowledge about the process.
Mhm.
And Donnie Bray, Warren County Choppers, and he was leading the points that year, and he won several years in a row. And I was asking a few questions, and he gave me a bottle of Smoking Guns Hot. So here you go, try this. And I think we ended up doing pretty decent that day. But that was the situation, was that these guys are willing to help you. And
Mhm.
when I got into that, I could start relating to that and got people start coming to me and asking questions. It got better and better over the years. That's where I always said, man, it's just the people is just amazing. Best friends you ever make in barbecue.
That's right.
I mean, it is truly some of the best people you ever meet and best friends you ever had in barbecue from all over the place. Every different walk of life too.
That's exactly right. Yeah, especially at the some of these festivals here that that we do regionally in Georgia and South Carolina. Being able to hang out with the barbecue folks, being able to chat with people and answer questions and just engage, I think is really fun for me. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but I would assume having your own show, you're a people guy. I would imagine that you enjoy connecting with some of the public and answering their questions. Unless I'm dead wrong, maybe you might say,
No.
well,
I do a lot of it, so we're good.
and that's a question that I wanted to touch on briefly, and that has to do with the engagement with the public and this idea that we as teams need to do what we can to encourage that and to make them feel welcome. And obviously, I know this can be a very hot topic, and you have a lot of different schools of thought. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it. But I do think it makes for an interesting discussion, and I'm curious just from your side because you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. We're not even 2 years into it, and you've been doing it for 13 years. But from your side, what can we as teams do proactively, over the long term to really, well, twofold, really bring more value to the content, to the festival organizers, help them understand our value. And then secondly, really engage with the public more, get the public excited about barbecue again, like the Pitmaster years.
Well, so I was part of the group that organized the Rufus Teague series during
Mhm.
COVID. So I was one of the ones that kind of put that system together. So I organized on a 30 some plus contest. I remember when COVID started, and I know a little off topic what you got, but we'll come back to what your question is. But when COVID first started, we was doing a Darlington contest. We had a Darlington contest lined up. I had the public involved. I had bands. We had Ferris wheels. We had everything lined up. And we had people sitting at the racetrack getting ready to go in on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the phone call at 12 o'clock on Thursday that said NASCAR shut down everything at all race car tracks across the whole country. So I had people coming for that event all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to sit there and scramble around, and we actually called it Plan B and relocate the whole contest somewhere else down the road. And so that was kind of a big deal to move it down there, and that's where the people got into it. And so we had it set up for the public. We had it set up for the public to come out there involved in it. We had it set up for the people come out there and taste the samples of barbecue and all that. But one of the things that I think that to get that kind of public involvement, it takes a lot of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot of free or whatever, but you got to get the word out that you're going to have public involvement to a contest. Now, if you go to an established festival, it's a little bit easier to do that because it's an established festival. If you're trying to create something from scratch, trying to get the public involved in something other, it is in its own right a very challenging task to happen. So the teams giving out samples of barbecue is not going to be the solution to get public involvement. All right, so you're not going to do that as much as you would love for that to be the case. It's not. Now, if you have public involvement there, and then you can get the samples of barbecue there to give out to the teams, give out to the public. Now, all of a sudden, you can have that public interaction.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been at contests and told I've been food for People's Choice and everything else. And we cooked. I remember one contest we cooked so many wings, and I got food with it. I probably didn't give out a pound of wings.
Mm-hmm.
Just they brought the wings, give us the wings, we cooked the wings, and for big public involvement, and nobody showed up.
Right.
So so it's not necessarily just one part as far as we got to cook food for People's Choice, and that's going to bring people in. No, it's not. We've got to get people there, and it's going to be a public involvement from advertising, public involvement from an establishment, and I've said this, and I've firsthand knowledge about this. When somebody asks me about putting on barbecue competition, I'll say, well, what's your goals? Mm-hmm. And they look at me funny. I said, what's your goals? We're not talking about anything else, just talking about just from a goal perspective. What is your goals? If your goals is to bring awareness to a cause, bring awareness to something other, then our barbecue competition is absolutely makes sense. We can rock and roll. If your job is to make money, then having a standalone barbecue competition is not going to work. Now, you can get sponsors, you can get other people come involved, and that helps out in situations. But if you're wanting to make money, then a barbecue competition is not going to be that. Now, if you take this barbecue competition and use it in conjunction with a festival, use it in conjunction with some other things to raise money, maybe bring awareness, it'll grow. But it's not going to grow the first year. It's not going to grow the first 3 years. It's going to take it a period of time of building up upon itself and exponentially. And then all of a sudden, now you get to the point that instead of you going and asking a sponsor for money, they're calling you up, say, hey, can I be a sponsor for your event? At that time, then you can start making money.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's no secret that if the objective is to make money and it's purely a competition, you're going to be very, very hard pressed to you're going to be disappointed. It's just not going to happen. And I love what you said. I think you're one of the first guests that's brought up a really great point. And that is, everybody talks about People's Choice. Everybody talks about, hey, we can just give out some food, which I understand it. I get that concept. To me, it comes across as a really lazy answer, in my opinion, because, it's like you said, just simply us giving out food. If people don't even know about the festival, if they don't know about the event, it doesn't matter how much food you give out if they're not there, Yeah. And I think, that brings up a really good point. And that goes back to, the marketing of it, the branding of it. And I also think expectations. I think there's a lot of folks out there that, don't really fully grasp or have realistic expectations, especially for a first year event. They think it's going to be this awesome thing, and it very well may be, but a lot of times it's not. It takes that, 2 to 3 years, like you talked about, to build that up. And otherwise, again, you're just not going to have the participation that you're looking for. Right.
Yeah. And I was expand upon it even more. And I would say that every team out there, every team, every judge, everybody associated with barbecue needs to go and be part of a team of organizing contests. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about being into it. I'm talking about being into it from the conception, being into it from the advertising perspective, being into it from begging teams to come, being into it from begging judges to show up, being into it running the judging booth, to run the scoring system, just comment cards, and to seeing the money, seeing where all that money goes. Mm-hmm. If you do that, then all of a sudden you'll come back out and you'll be like, this is a lot more complicated than it is, because I'm a team, and I'm first one to tell you, I enjoy competing contests. And I also know how it is just saying, show up here on the Thursday or Friday, set up here, cook the food, go home on a Saturday or Sunday, and get your feelings hurt, or come home a winner or a loser, whatever you want to be. And only thing we're focusing on, okay, I spent this much money in food, I spent this much money in rubs and sauces, I spent this much money in gas, this much time to do this. This is a cook process. This we got done, and we go home. And that's all we see. We're sitting there with blinders on. We're just seeing this one perspective right here. And that's our perspective. Organizers, they see in their perspective, their blinders in their ball game. A judge is seeing theirs in their ball game. Everybody's seeing with the blinders. And I totally understand that. And I'm the first one to admit that. But you kind of need to look at it from the whole perspective.
Mhm.
and say, okay, look at this thing as a whole. And when you have been involved with all those aspects of it, even come out there and just judging contests. Just go out there and judge a contest and just taste the food and get an idea that so kind of getting a little bit off track with that, but it's a perfect example of judging food. I have gotten scores before and done very well in a category that I had no business doing well in a category. And I have gotten killed in the category that I deserve to win the category. I mean, Lawrence, a couple years ago, I got 3 top 5 calls, and brisket was dead in the water.
Mhm.
I don't think it was that bad, but it is what it is.
Yep.
But then again, I've gotten a top call and didn't deserve a top call. But the thing about it is, when you judging, what you'll find out when you judging is, if you ever judge something other that's been burnt, you'll understand, okay, if that thing's burnt and that was judged first, and a judge don't know that he needs to truly clean his palate going to the next one, or understanding the whole concept that it's going to truly clean the palate going to the next one, or as a team turning in food and saying, man, I like something spicy. I'll put a lot of cayenne pepper to it. And I've done that. And you're going to basically kill the whole table. That
Right.
doesn't matter how good your food is, but if you follow that, it's going to kill the table. And that's not the judge's fault. That's
Right.
not the team's fault. That's not that one person's fault. They turned their food in. It could have been judged last when nobody would have known it. So
Mhm.
I think you go as a whole with that. And then you understand the whole concept about the whole, every piece of the puzzle. That
Right.
makes you a better cook, better organizer, better judge, everything. And I mean, you've seen this down there in Swamp Fest. I had a judge cooking with me down there. Miss Jody just come out there, was welcome to cook with me and just see what's going on. And I appreciate your feedback. And hopefully it's from be beneficial to both of us.
That's exactly right. And there was also, kind of coming full circle here. I mean, there was, down there at Swamp Fest, there was the People's Choice, which I thought, just from an organizing standpoint, I thought they did a really good job with that. I know you were out of food pretty quick, but I think, of course, it I understand why some teams don't like it. I personally enjoy engaging with the public. I think having it after the final turn in was a great idea. Because we couldn't really leave anyway, because we were kind of stuck there, on
Oh yeah.
Main Street or whatever. But let's go back to judging. Let's talk about some judging here, because there's a lot of folks lately that are chatting about a lot of really good, I think a lot of good constructive conversations personally. I mean, I know that some folks get a little heated, but most of the people I've talked to has been very constructive. And that's really what I want to try to do, is have a constructive dialogue around it. And that is the judge seating program, which is, again, that is a hot button issue at the moment. And I think something that I'm hopeful that we can continue to have a constructive dialogue around, right? I'm curious just from your take, right? Because you have judged, you have been a cook, you have been an organizer. So really you kind of done everything. Have you been a rep at all?
I have not been a rep. No, I'm not
Okay. Well,
qualified for the rep.
you got 3 of the 4, right? So, I mean, I guess my point is you have unique perspective that others may not, certainly more than myself. I've never been a judge. I've never organized a contest. So I'm curious just from your standpoint, what in your mind, is is the correct path forward with this? And again, I know there's no right or wrong answers. I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are about how that specific thing can be fixed, and how we can, move forward with something everybody can agree on.
Well, I think one of the things that I would like the seating program myself when we had it in place. I like that reliability to that. So I'm going to say that straight off the board. I'm a fan of the seating program. I feel like it was good when it was used, and I feel like it would be good going back into it. However, what I will say is that what I think a lot of people don't understand is what makes the seating program successful. Mark Gibbs put together a program that was used, and it was a great program. But at the same time is, what does it take to put the information in there from week to week to week to week that'll maintain that program to be right, maintain that system to be reliable? And I think that's a question that nobody's really even asked or know the answers to, because if it's something other to be inputting all this information in there, and again, you got human factor into it. If it's automatic, where it's going to be automatically put into it, All right, who's doing that program? What's the cost involved into it? Is the cost worthwhile? I mean, there's a lot of questions about that here that KCBS board of directors knows the answers, know behind the scenes of information we've never even thought of. And
That's
so I
right.
think there's a lot of the pieces to that puzzle that, again, we're looking at the world with blinders on. We're seeing the world with blinders on.
Mhm.
And the reality is we don't know the whole picture. And so until somebody can put together all the pieces to it and see the whole picture, then we're reacting. I mean,
Right.
we're just reacting to a situation, or a lot of people are reacting to a situation. And I'm like, you don't react. You sit there and you make educated decisions based upon facts. When we're reacting, it's a knee-jerk reaction, and a lot of times those reactions are not the best for us in the long term.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. You go back, I think the analogy is perfect. The blinders analogy. I mean, you get in the zone and you're only focused on your little slice of the pie. And I don't think that's anybody's fault. I just think it just happens, I mean,
Yeah.
because that's what you're focusing on. And I don't even begin to understand the technical aspect or the IT aspect of how to even go about updating that information, automatically. That's well above my pay grade. Right. So that's not, I think in principle, I'm like you, and, the concept, just on paper, yes, the concept to me makes a lot of sense. If ultimately it betters the sport of competitive barbecue and gets more people involved, backyard pro, doesn't matter, then I think it's a win-win. But it's the minutia details, as you pointed out, that we don't really know much about. And frankly, I don't want to know. That's just not my wheelhouse. I'm not an IT guy. I don't claim to be. I have no earthly idea how that could ever even be done. Right. I'm sure there's someone somewhere that knows how to do that. I don't even begin to know that. And I also like what you said about the fact that, we are not privy. And of course, this is a whole nother rabbit trail here, but we're not, we as teams are not necessarily privy to all of the, board's conversations. And we're only really, privy to the board meeting minutes, which, I've sat on many boards in my career, and, there are certain things that have to go on the minutes and there are certain things that don't,
Absolutely.
so, that's not as reliable as it would seem. And I think but I think I go back to what I said earlier, and that is, having that open dialogue, and I think the biggest, and this, again, third party perspective here, I've cooked 12 KCBS comps, some GBAs, MBN, SCBAs. I don't pretend to know everything. One thing that does concern me, though, is when I continually see or hear or read that there's not really much communication between the teams and the board on this specific subject. Now, do I know that to be fact? I don't. That's just what I read and hear. If that is true, then I think that is a cause for some concern if there's no communication. Because in my mind, anytime any sort of governing entity, regardless of what it is, barbecue, you name it, anytime there's a break in communication, deliberately, maybe, right? But I think that can be an issue. And I think that's, at least in my uneducated opinion, that's a big issue. I think that is, getting some of the teams concerned and feel like they need to voice their opinion.
So what I would say about that is right now our board is a pretty heavy cook-oriented board, cook-heavy board right now. So there's a lot of cook teams on the board, and it's more than years past. So I don't know the communication side of it. I've never had a problem talking with the board, calling the board up and have a conversation with the board members. If I have any question, whatever, I've never not answered my phone call or never not responded to my emails.
Yeah.
So I haven't had any type of issues with the communication side of it. Not saying it's not out there, but again, I'm saying I don't know that side of it. Again, I'd have to say, let's look at the facts. I mean, if it's somebody that's saying it's miscommunication, well, they're not liking me answer, then
right.
It is what
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you with that one.
That's something entirely different, no doubt.
So, Or it might be the situation that they're saying that we're trying to get the information together. And the thing about this is everybody understand one thing. We have a volunteer board of direct. I mean, KCBS is volunteers. They do a lot of work. And I ran for KCBS board at one time. So I kind of seen a lot of that information when I was just the information coming. I was just even running for the board. I wasn't even elected, but I was running for the board. So all that information coming there. So a decision's not made. Hey, you need to make the decision. Okay, get off the phone. Hey, we make the decision. Okay, get off the phone. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
They meet once a week, once a month, or twice a month, or whatever it is, and you're discussing it. And somebody else has, well, this is my perspective. Okay, well, then that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about your perspective, so let's look at it. We can postpone to this next month. Then you come to the next month, and everybody kind of breaks upon there, talk about the perspectives, what they had, and then you're saying, does this deserve a vote, or is this something other that we're going to create more chaos going down the line? Right. And so I think there's a lot of other pieces to that puzzle than just saying, I'm going to call you and voice my complaint, and then we're going to have it. So I think that's some merit to it. Now, do I feel like that anything can be improved on? Absolutely. I mean, I'm a board member for the GBC right now, Georgia Barbecue Championship. And so I see the board and we try to do things. But again, as a board, as a member, what are we doing to help out the situation? Not necessarily calling the board and asking problems, but we asked, you said something earlier about growing our sport, getting it back to where it was during the barbecue stuff. Right. All right. How many times have you come over here and encouraged somebody else to come out and just do a competition on their own, or go be a judge, or, hey, let's just get these other ones together, or better yet, get to know the judges. And we've done this here at a house a couple of times, do a frost buster prior to the season started, come out here and get some judges come over to the house, and let's get 2 or 3 teams cooked together and give them food and get to know those judges. That's and right. Therefore they do it. Or go to a contest and you got a judge walking by, talk to them, ask them how was the food or whatever. And just have a conversation, know their name. And I think that's the thing about it is because one of the pieces here that just so disconnecting from the communication, I'm going to talk more of communication between the teams and the judges, not the teams in KCBS. I'm going to say from a one-on-one, our judges, we can control that. Absolutely 100%. We can control that. So if you go to a contest and you see a judge walking by, number one, you got to understand something. You're in my example. I'm in the big trailer. I got the doors closed. This person not coming on, knocking on the door. Hey, what's your name? I'm so-and-so. They're not going to do that. Heck, I wouldn't do that. But if I'm out there and I see them and I go up to them and say, hey, how you doing today? Shake your hand. I'm Jason Hardee. What's your name? Get to know them. I mean, know who their wife is or the husband is or whatever, but just get to know who they are. You create relationships. Next time you do a contest, guess what they're going to do? They're going to knock on that door. And they're going to want to have a conversation with you. And at some point in time, they might come in there and cook with you. So you've created this communication situation. And so when you have a question about, hey, chicken, I'm going to call up this judge and be, hey, give me your ideas on this. What do you think about this? Yeah. Perfect example. At the contest at Swamp Fest, I cooked chicken wings. All intentions of turning chicken wings. Because I was playing around that contest. My whole goal at contest was to try some new recipes and just try some different stuff. And so Jody was cooking me, was judged with me. And so I had these chicken wings, but I had the thighs and the drumettes together to the V's. I said, that'd be really cool to turn in there. But she told me, she said, the problem is you can't get it and wash your hands between entries, between categories. You don't have time. And so if you get this big chicken wing like this and it's got a sauce on it and it's so sloppy and it makes a mess, you can't wash your hands. It's going to be hard for you to judge you and anybody following you. Mm-hmm. So to me, didn't cross my mind, but she told me that information. So now I know going forward, I don't need to do that.
Another great point. And that is it just comes down to building those relationships, making those connections, introducing yourself and getting to know people better and understanding their perspective. And I also think, just sitting here listening to you, I mean, you've really inspired me to seriously consider becoming a judge and judging myself just so I can understand what's going on, inside that tent, because I don't have a clue, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I do think it would be, important. And I think it would be helpful if the majority of teams would judge a contest or two. Not saying they got to become, master judges, but, judge a contest or two, get an idea of what's actually going on and really just walk a mile, so to speak, in their shoes to get just a better idea of, okay, what's actually happening here. Because you alluded to it earlier, you didn't really say it, but alluded to it. And that is, we can make phone calls and we can send text messages and Facebook posts and all this other stuff. Is it really going to enact any change or move the football forward? Probably not. I mean, it's going to get folks fired up for a day or two. And, then life gets in the way, like we all know, and they just kind of, go about their way. And I think if you have those relationships, if you have those open lines of communication, like you talked about, I think it just makes it that much easier to pick up the phone and say, hey, give me your thoughts on this. Tell me what's going on here. What do you think about this? I think that's spot on. I really do. And I'm serious, man. I'd never even considered judging, but this conversation right here, you've inspired me to look into it. I'm not going to say I'm going to be a master judge, but, judge a few.
Judge a few contests and learn what the flavor profiles the judge are looking for. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. One thing I will say, a couple notes on this though, is as a cook team going there and judging contests, one thing you got to understand, you're not tasting it and judging based on your flavor. You're just based upon what that attorney and team's intent was. Because a lot of times teams can be really harsh judges because I want it to taste like mine, taste like this. That's not the goal. The goal is to appreciate what they're doing and see if the flavor's balanced and it's what they're trying to intent is. Because I think that's a lot of time from a cook's perspective. We like, my brisket tastes like this. I want to taste everybody else's brisket that tastes like mine. No, your goal on there is to, number one, judge it for what it is. Number two is what is winning. If yours ain't winning, what's winning? So I think that's something other to do with that. The other thing I would say on there to good communication with KCBS is, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but KCBS has got subcommittees. So they've got these committees in here. The board of directors are chairs of judges or cook teams or organizers or whatever else. And I don't know all the committees, but they have subcommittees. And you are, as a member, you're able to go sign up and be part of those committees. And so when you're part of those committees, you can have a direct communication on this stuff. And so the question I'm going to ask somebody else is, if I know that Kurt is on the subcommittee and he's putting on the effort to work to make sure this thing's successful, and he calls up this person with a concern, is this person going to be willing to truly listen to the concern? And I'm not saying they don't, but I'm just saying is, if you know this person's always there to help, always there to work, always there to show up, and he brings you a point of concern, then it might have a little more merit to it than somebody you don't ever hear from except when the world's burning down.
Amen, man. I mean, that's it. Like I said, if you got those relationships and you genuinely care about, bettering the sport, bettering everybody around you, then I think you can't lose. It's when those communication lines are not there, people, rumors start flying, and it's not helpful. It's not constructive. Nothing gets done. And that's why I think it's important that we do continue to talk about this and get a better understanding of all these different perspectives, judges, reps, you name it. Right. Because that's ultimately like what helps us all better understand a day in the life of their, walking in their shoes, so to speak. So yeah, I think you're spot on. And I'm dead serious about judging. I'm going to, make a note to look up what I need to do there and throw my hat in the ring to just, cause I want to better understand it. Right. I don't.
It's a lot of fun. It's interesting to see all that. It's really cool.
Absolutely. So again, our listeners, we're chatting with Jason Hardee. He's out of Conway, South Carolina, pitmaster and owner of Elite Barbecue Smokers. Make sure you check him out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's got a barbecue roundtable show. It airs at 8:30 p.m. Eastern every Tuesday night on Facebook. It's a great stuff. He's got some great guests on there week after week. So make sure you check him out there and support him. And Jason, we appreciate you coming on. Enjoy the conversation, sir.
Hey, pleasure mine. Thank you for having me.